On the morning of June 3, 1998, a passenger looked down at his feet and saw something impossible. The floor of a speeding train had just been punctured from below, a thick ring of steel bursting upward like a missile, missing his family by inches. The train was traveling at 200 kilometers per hour. He grabbed his children, rushed to find the conductor, and pleaded with him to pull the emergency brake. The conductor refused, not because he didn't believe the man, but because company policy requires a visual inspection first. What happened in the next 4 minutes didn't just kill 101 people, it exposed a chain of decisions, warnings, and ignored alarms that had been building for years. The Intercity Express, Germany's high-speed rail marvel, was, by the late 1990s, considered one of the safest, most advanced trains on the planet. It had run flawlessly for 7 straight years, cutting across a reunified Germany at speeds up to 280 kilometers per hour, with 0 fatalities. Engineers, politicians, and executives pointed to it as proof of German technological supremacy. But on a clear Wednesday morning in the small town of Eschede, that 7-year record ended in the span of about 60 seconds. The question isn't simply what broke. The real question is why it was allowed to break. To understand this, we have to go back years before the crash, to a decision made not in an engineering lab, but in a boardroom. A decision driven by one very specific complaint from first-class passengers, and a warning sent just 1 year before the disaster that was thrown in the trash. This is where things get interesting and deeply troubling. The Intercity Express program was born out of a reunified Germany's ambition to prove itself on the world stage. Conceived to rival Japan's Shinkansen and France's TGV, the ICE network was built around one central promise: unmatched speed, safety, and luxury. And for its first 7 years, it delivered. But underneath that flawless reputation, a quiet problem was festering inside the first-class dining car. The original ICE-1 trains ran on solid, single-cast steel wheels, a design called monoblock. These wheels were structurally sound and dependable. However, at cruising speeds between 200 and 280 kilometers per hour, the rigid steel transmitted low-frequency vibrations through the aluminum carriage frames. In the first-class restaurant car, this created an acoustic effect that passengers and politicians found deeply annoying. Glasses and plates rattled and wandered across the tables with every passing kilometer. High-paying business travelers complained. Executives noticed. Something had to be done. The proper fix would have required a complete redesign of the bogie air suspension system, the framework beneath the carriages that houses the wheels, or expensive modifications to the trackbed infrastructure. Both solutions were costly. Deutsche Bahn was preparing for corporate privatization at the time, and there was intense pressure to keep operational costs down. So instead of investing in a real engineering solution, the executive board authorized an alternative, a cheaper, faster workaround. They approved the deployment of a wheel called the Bochum 84, a rubber-cushioned, dual-block design that had originally been developed for low-speed urban streetcars. The idea was simple on the surface. By inserting a 20mm thick rubber damping ring between the inner steel hub and the outer steel tire of each wheel, the vibrations would be absorbed before reaching the carriage floor. And it worked. The glasses stopped rattling. The first-class passengers were satisfied. What no one fully reckoned with, however, was that this streetcar wheel had never been physically tested at the extreme speeds and crushing loads of a 900-ton high-speed train. Germany didn't even have the testing facilities to do it at the time. The certification was based almost entirely on computer models and theoretical calculations. The Bochum 84 wheel entered service on the world's most celebrated high-speed rail network, built on nothing more than math on paper. And that gap between theory and reality was about to start filling up, with cracks. Here's the thing about metal fatigue. It doesn't announce itself. It builds silently, invisibly, over thousands of operational hours, until the day it doesn't have to be silent anymore. And that is exactly what the rubber-cushioned Bochum 84 wheel was doing, deep inside the steel, with every single revolution. The physics of the failure follows a predictable, brutal logic. The rubber damping ring, designed to absorb vibrations, also meant that the outer steel tire was no longer locked rigidly to the inner steel hub. Under the immense weight of a loaded high-speed train, that rubber ring compressed slightly with every rotation, forcing the outer steel tire to flex into a faintly elliptical shape. Given the wheel's diameter, this deformation cycle repeated itself approximately 500,000 times in a single day of service. Think about rapidly bending a paperclip back and forth. The metal doesn't break immediately, but the repeated stress weakens the molecular structure until one final bend causes a complete fracture. That process, known in engineering as elastoplastic fatigue, was happening invisibly on the inside surface of the steel tire, exactly where it pressed against the rubber ring. Because the crack grew from the inside out, it was completely invisible to the naked eye. And this is where the story takes a deeply troubling turn, because Deutsche Bahn actually had the right tool to find it. The maintenance depot in Munich had been equipped with specialized ultrasonic testing machines called ULM devices. These machines sent high-frequency sound waves through the metal and could detect internal fractures that no flashlight or human eye could ever see. They were the right technology for exactly this problem, but the machines were phased out by 1994. The reason? They kept generating false positive readings, flagging healthy wheels as defective. Maintenance teams, under constant pressure to keep trains on schedule, grew frustrated with the repeated false alarms. Management eventually allowed the ultrasonic program to be quietly discontinued. Inspections shifted back to workers walking along carriages with handheld neon tubes and standard flashlights. On June 2nd, 1998, the day before the disaster, the train that would become ICE 884 was inspected at the Munich depot. A mechanic measured the wear on the fateful wheel and recorded a deviation of 1.1 millimeters, more than double the official safety threshold of 0.5 millimeters. The train was cleared for service anyway, but the wheel wasn't the only thing screaming for attention, and no one was listening. The crash at Eschede was not a surprise to everyone. In the year before it happened, warnings arrived from multiple directions and were dismissed every single time. A year earlier, in 1997, the Hanover Regional Tram Company, Ustra, discovered catastrophic premature fatigue cracks in the exact same dual-block rubber-cushioned wheels. Their trams ran at a maximum of 80 kilometers per hour, not 200, and the cracks were appearing far too early. Ustra immediately shortened inspection intervals across all 260 of their vehicles and sent a formal written warning to Deutsche Bahn and every other commercial user of the technology, detailing the inner surface fatigue cracking. Deutsche Bahn's official response was to dismiss it. Executives wrote back claiming they had seen no such issues, citing what they called constructive differences between a lightweight urban tram and a heavy, high-speed train. The logic they used was backwards. They assumed that because their trains were heavier, the data from lighter trams was irrelevant. In reality, heavier loads at higher speeds would accelerate the exact same fatigue mechanism exponentially faster. In the weeks leading up to the disaster, the train's own onboard computer had automatically flagged the defective wheel 3 separate times. Train conductors and service staff had filed 8 formal complaints over 2 months about violent vibrations and abnormal noises from the exact bogie that would later fail. That's 11 documented warnings, digital and human, all ignored. On the morning of June 3, 1998, the steel tire finally fractured completely. The broken ring tore upward through the cabin floor. Passenger Jörg Dittmann moved his family to safety and found the conductor. He begged him to stop the train. The conductor, following strict Deutsche Bahn policy, refused to pull the brake without a visual inspection by the train manager. Those 4 minutes, while the conductor walked back through the carriages, were enough for the dragging steel to catch a track switch, divert the rear bogie onto a parallel track, and slam the third carriage into the 2 thin concrete support piers of the Reberla Road overpass. The piers shattered. The 300-ton concrete bridge collapsed directly onto the speeding train. The trailing carriages, still moving at 200 kilometers per hour, compressed like an accordion against the fallen concrete wall. The aluminum welds unzipped on impact, eliminating any survival space. 101 people died. Just 2 minutes earlier, a train traveling in the opposite direction had passed under that same bridge, and when the dust finally settled, the question of who would answer for all of it was only just beginning. So what does the Eschede disaster ultimately tell us? In the end, this wasn't a freak accident. It was the mathematically predictable result of millions of ignored stress cycles, dismissed warnings, abandoned safety equipment, and a corporate culture that placed passenger comfort and budget targets above engineering integrity. The 3 engineers who faced trial paid fines of roughly $12,000 each. No executive served a single day in prison. The solid monoblock wheels, the original, safer design, were quietly put back on the entire fleet. Today, Eschede is studied not just in railway engineering programs, but at NASA, as a textbook warning against deploying unproven technology without real-world testing. The price of 101 lives, ultimately, bought the world a safer railway system. What we can understand from this is simple. Ignored warnings are not warnings at all, they're predictions. Drop your thoughts in the comments section. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Catch you in the next one.